Hello. Today I would like to announce a new, very scarily ambitious project, and I am calling it the ERP Center of Excellence for Latin America. And the goal of the program will be to provide Dynamics 365 Business Central training and certification services to prospective candidates. So let's talk about that. First of all, for those who may be watching who don't know who I am, my name is Steve Endo, and I have been a Microsoft MVP for 10 years now. I've worked with Microsoft Business Central for about 4 years, and prior to focusing on Business Central, I worked with Microsoft Dynamics GP ERP software for approximately 19 years. And I'm a former Microsoft certified trainer. And my company is called Blue Dragonfly. And I am based in Los Angeles, but our company is based in Park City, Utah. And I have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/SteveEndo. I'm also very active on Twitter at twitter.com/SteveEndo. And I also have a blog at blog.steveendo.com. And I have a QR code here that takes you to a link page with all of my resources online and contact information. So what is an ERP Center of Excellence? Well, that's just a name I'm giving this. And the idea is to fundamentally provide world-class education. So I would like to develop the best Business Central training program in the world and offer it to initially Latin American countries. But training alone is insufficient. If someone attends a week-long class on Business Central, that is very much just an introduction to the entire world and ecosystem of Business Central. So no matter how many training courses we develop and offer, we need much more than that. So a second component that needs to be developed in tandem is an entire community. So we will need mentoring, we'll need support, we'll need to develop relationships and present opportunities to the candidates attending the training so that there is a path to help support them after a training program. Next, we can have great education, we can have students go through a training program, we can have a great community, but unless there is demand for those skilled individuals, those trained individuals, consultants, developers, people who know Business Central, unless there is demand for their services or for them to be employees of an organization, then we will again fail. So a comprehensive program needs to start with education, have a community, and then have demand for the people who have gone through that process. So we need to have an entire ecosystem to support the program. And all of this is based off of excellence. That's the fundamental component of this entire program, hence Center of Excellence. This program needs to be able to produce world-class Business Central resources, whether that's a functional consultant, a developer, a help desk agent, whatever that role is. The emphasis needs to be on excellence. So that's a fundamental component of what we'll be looking for. So let's talk about demand and why this program may be valuable. And at the moment, this is largely anecdotal. I've been listening for this, trying to understand if there is some type of metric or if there's a survey or how do we assess Business Central demand. At the moment, it is anecdotal based on what I've been able to find. And recently, if you are familiar with the Dynamics Corner podcast, episode 228, one of the hosts, Brad, mentioned or opened his podcast with partners and customers are having difficulty getting resources to staff projects and maintain implementations. how can we get more resources to come into the Business Central community? So that's a theme. I'm assuming it's anecdotal based on the discussion in the podcast, but I think there tends to be a common belief that there is significant demand for Business Central. And to support that, Daniel writes on Twitter, word on the street is that partners are having a difficult time staffing their Business Central projects. And so he's putting himself out there saying, hey, I'm available to work. And so this is based on conversations that he's had. And then Soren from Microsoft mentioned that every partner he speaks to reports to not having enough staff to onboard new customers. So there's a challenge where the partner may have several customers who want to implement Business Central, but they don't have the resources or staff or expertise or just the time to bring these customers onto Business Central in the timeline those customers want. So it does seem that there is demand for Business Central, the product, which is a little different than the demand I'm looking to produce as part of this program. But if there is demand for Business Central help, then I believe this program will be of value. So let's talk about education. The goal of an ERP Center of Excellence in Latin America for Business Central is to provide free Business Central training. If you recall, if you've been in this space for many, many years, over a decade ago, Microsoft used to offer formal, structured training classes for several of their ERP products. Navision had it for many, many years, and then Dynamics GP developed it as part of their product line, and I'm most familiar with that Dynamics GP training program and became a Microsoft certified trainer in 2007 to teach those classes. Well, that training program was discontinued by Microsoft before 2010, I believe, and they just didn't have enough customers or partners signing up for it or offering to teach the classes. Very few people wanted to travel to a training site, spend $2,000 or $3,000, pay for travel, pay for hotel, in order to have employees or consultants spend a week in a classroom. Excuse me. So that program was discontinued. So it's going to be a big project to develop that from scratch, but I'm looking to develop formal, functional, and technical training curriculums. And initially, I'd like to start with a few in-person training classes. And the reason for that is to get more direct in-person feedback, see how the class progresses, see if the curriculum is oriented properly, if it is the right level, and work on refining that training curriculum. It's a big, big project, and you can't just write something and assume that it will work. So that's the initial goal. But eventually, just due to the nature of technology and being more efficient, we can certainly consider online training, video courses, self-paced YouTube videos, whatever that looks like. In addition to Business Central product training, both functional and technical, I believe there's going to be a need and a value in having ISV product training. And that's because if a consultant knows Business Central, but they don't know anything about the ISV products that a customer may be using, they will essentially have an incomplete education. They won't be able to fully support the customers. So I think that will be an essential component of this as well. And in order to support the next step, a certification process, there's an opportunity to develop some type of study guide or enhance the Microsoft study guide for the functional exam. And I've heard that Microsoft is working on a developer exam for Business Central. So I think there's opportunities to have study guides or some type of curriculum or materials to support that certification process. So what might this encompass? For Business Central, there's a ton of content that needs to be covered, right? There's Business Central configuration, there's migrations, implementation, administration, there's system integrations, there are things like Performance Profiler and telemetry. There's just so many topics within Business Central on the functional side. And I think there's going to be a need for help desk and support. That's a specific role. It's very different from, say, implementation and planning and requirements and data migration and all those other components. It's maybe a new customer, a customer that's just about to go live, or one that's been live for 6 months. There are different issues and questions that come up. And so I think there's a need for help desk and support. And maybe there are partners who have 20 customers, but they just don't have the support, the staff to keep on dedicated help desk and support. So I think there's an opportunity to grow that space. And of course, there are all the related Microsoft products, Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, etc. So I think there's lots of opportunities in the functional space to develop those skills and personnel. On the technical side, again, just endless, vast landscape of knowledge and skills required. We have Business Central online environments. We have Docker containers, VS Code, and the many extensions. AL development is an entire core set of knowledge: tables, pages, queries, web APIs, webhooks, etc. Custom reports and RDLC, it's an entire niche of AL development. PTEs versus AppSource apps, two very different directions for development, right? To support that development, you have DevOps pipelines or ALGO for GitHub. We want to support proper best practices and development tools. There's BC integrations for the development side. There's business events. There's Dataverse. You might need complementary tools such as Azure Functions or Logic Apps. So just a huge universe of opportunities for Business Central development. Is not just AL, right? So comprehensive solutions might involve 3 or more of these things. Well, as I mentioned, I think there is going to be a need for specific ISV training and expertise. A person may know Business Central very well, but if they don't know, say, binary stream multi-entity management, they may have a very difficult time navigating a particular environment. So unless you're aware of how these ISV products work and how to support them, your knowledge of Business Central, the ecosystem, the client environment, the consulting world may be incomplete. And so I asked on Twitter, what are some common ISV solutions that people see in the United States, just to focus the discussion? And these were some of the ISVs that I got feedback on, that people see in customer environments in the United States, or that they think it might be valuable to know in order to assist a customer implementation or customer support. So for instance, if a customer is using integrity data, HR, and payroll in the United States, and they need help with that product, well, it may be valuable for someone to have that skill, have that knowledge, have whatever that training program is from that ISV in order to help support those products. So in addition to being able to provide Business Central support and consulting and development, I think there's an opportunity for ISVs to have additional knowledge, awareness to help with implementation and support. So I'm exploring that now. I've spoken to a couple ISVs, and it sounds like it's a good opportunity. It's a good fit. It's a mutually beneficial relationship for both parties. So once you go down the training path, I think there's an opportunity to kind of legitimize this program. And there's an opportunity to develop certification study guides and have study groups to help support as part of the community. And so perhaps this ERP Center of Excellence will have a formal training certification process, whatever that looks like. You have completed these courses, you have completed this suite of classes. I don't know that we want to develop an exam because Microsoft has their functional consultant certification. And whether that's perfect or not, it takes a lot of work to develop those. So I think that would be a great way to say, hey, I went through this training program. I now took the functional certification. And if Microsoft does release the developer certification, then that could be another way to formalize that you've gone through this program and you are certified. And so past the training element of this community, we have community. And one component of community would be the Dynamics user group meetups. So if you aren't familiar, Dynamics user group supports people who want to start local user groups in their community, and they use the platform called Meetup, and that helps organize, announce, and facilitate local meetups. So you can sign up for your local user group, you can be notified when there are events, and they help pay for that subscription. They help facilitate if you need to have snacks or drinks or lunch or whatever at that facility, I believe they can help facilitate that. And they just help support people who are willing to lead local user groups. So we are starting to form at least one user group in Latin America to get that kicked off. Currently, there are no Dynamics user group meetup leaders in all of Latin America. So we are working on starting the very first one now. And I expect there will be many others over the course of the next year or two. And as I mentioned, after you receive training, there needs to be some type of continuing education. So you go through a class that can often be a very academic exercise, and you may know the words or where to click, but you may not have the context. So having continuing education, I think, is an essential part of growing as a Business Central professional. And support and mentoring is going to be a critical component of making that happen. Maybe that'll involve hands-on labs and projects where people in your region or your local group can collaborate on something to learn a new feature, learn how to do something new, create a prototype of some fun new project. And based on that, you can develop project portfolios and help put things on your resume. Hey, I integrated with this web service. I use this feature in Business Central. I learned how to do fixed assets, and I really like that. And maybe you're into the financial reporting. Whatever it is, help support those developing skill sets. And of course, building relationships. This is very much a community based on relationships. So you need to know people in order to develop relationships and make connections and have opportunities. And next up, share those opportunities. I know someone in Mexico who is looking for an AL developer who can help with RDLC reports. Perfect. I know this person in Uruguay who happens to like doing that. So connect those people and share those opportunities. Maybe we'll have internships with partners, ISVs, customers who are willing to support the program and offer introductory projects to help support candidates that are coming out of the program. And it would be fantastic if we had employers, partners, ISVs, customers willing to have entry-level roles for people who are part of this program. So lots of opportunities to build community to support the program and the people who have participated in the training and certification. So I've mentioned several potential employers. Latin America, Business Central partners and companies or end users, obvious audience for these candidates who have gone through the program. So I think it would be great if there were people who said, hey, we are very interested in hiring your next class of certified candidates who come out of your Center of Excellence program. That would be fantastic. Or maybe there's an ISV saying, hey, we want someone who is skilled in Business Central and who's willing to learn our product to help support our customers in the Latin American region, or we need more help to support our US customers, whatever the case is. Global ISVs. I think US partners and ISVs would be great candidates to benefit from this program, as well as US Business Central customers as well. I think there's an opportunity for nearshore outsourcing firms. So if there's a nearshore outsourcing firm in Latin America, then if you bring on one of these candidates to help supplement your portfolio or your skill set or services you offer, they can provide excellent support within the Latin American region or United States or Canada because shared time zones, similar time zones. And for those looking to go independent, lots of opportunities there. So maybe you don't want to work for an individual company, but you like contract work. Maybe something like Upwork We can build a community on Upwork. You can list yourself there, and you can be available for contract work for people who just want individual resources and work with them directly. So potential project opportunities here, customization, design, and estimates, right? I think there may be some misconception or assumption that this type of work has to be development only. I don't think that's true. I think there's a much broader opportunity for skilled professionals to have different types of projects. So it could be someone who specializes in design and estimates. It could be an architect, a solution architect. And there is obviously AL development would be required. Maybe data migration, the process where a customer extracts their data, assembles it, cleans it up, gets it into particular file format ready for import. Maybe you need corrections, data transformations. It's a very time-consuming process, and so maybe you need a resource just to focus on that. Obviously, AL customizations and application development, obvious role for new candidates, RDLC reports, ISV implementation and support, Power BI reports are growing rapidly in the Business Central space. And as I mentioned before, I think help desk and on-call support is a great opportunity for growth for ISVs, for Business Central partners, and maybe customers who just want to be able to pick up the phone, who send an email, and get prompt support within their time zone. So this is a huge program. Latin America is an entirely massive region, from Mexico all the way down to Argentina and Chile. So in order to narrow the scope, to produce focus for this program, I am personally choosing to base my efforts in El Salvador. So I'm going to be contributing to and focusing on starting the program in El Salvador. It's a country I'm learning about, it's a country I'm familiar with, and it's a country I've studied. And El Salvador is it's hard to be geographically centralized, but it's in Central America. So it's accessible from Mexico, easily accessible from the United States, and it's also accessible from South America if we wanted to have people travel there. So it's pretty convenient geographically. So that's where my focus is going to be. Anyone can help support this in any country in Latin America. Welcome your help. But I am going to, just for my sanity's sake, focus on building training and community and user groups initially in El Salvador as kind of the pilot project. We have lots to learn, lots of things to refine. So it's going to take time. So I'm just going to start my focus there. And there just happen to be several very distinct advantages of El Salvador from my perspective. The first is time zone. El Salvador is in U.S. Mountain Time Zone, so very central, very convenient for me being in the U.S. and also for much of South America, so it's convenient in that respect. If I'm in California, I can very easily have a phone call or a meeting with folks in El Salvador. And you may notice there's a key in this map here, and that is proficiency bands. And that is based off of the English Proficiency Index, based on an organization. Go to the website ef.com. ef.com/EPI. This organization does an annual survey of English proficiency around the world in order to kind of try to assess opportunities for organizations that are looking for English-speaking resources. And within the time zone band that I'm looking for, El Salvador is essentially number 2 behind Costa Rica. There are other countries such as Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, Chile, and Uruguay, but they're in slightly different time zones, and there are other factors that I'm focusing on El Salvador for. So English proficiency is a very strong component. The universities are very English focused. The employers for these types of skilled jobs are very focused on English as well. So there's an expectation that training and certification and the employment will be exclusively in English. And next up, El Salvador uses the US dollar as their national currency. So very convenient for me and for companies in the United States who want to work with El Salvador because US dollar is a common currency. So that really helps facilitate, say, payment and transactions cross-border. And next up, El Salvador's travel rules are very lenient to foreign travelers. So they have essentially an instant arrival travel visa for 85 countries: US, Canada, most of Latin America, India, and Europe can all arrive without any type of paperwork at the airport. You pay $12 US, you get a little ticket, and that gives you a 90-day traveler visa to stay in El Salvador. If you want to stay for more than 90 days, they do have an extension, or you can hop over for a vacation in Mexico and come right back. So it's very, very visitor friendly to over 80 countries throughout the world. And for instance, it's much easier to go to El Salvador than the United States, for instance. So that is a huge benefit for people looking to receive this training. If we have training based in El Salvador, it becomes a great way to have people come to El Salvador for in-person training. So with all of this said, an absolute key component, I believe, for this entire program is excellence. So an ERP center of excellence that is not hyperbole. I believe the program needs to produce and support excellence. I mean, truly, the candidates, the training program, and the people who are graduating, so to speak, of this program need to offer excellent services, have excellent skills, and they will obviously need to build experience, but I want this program to be known for true world-class excellence. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on. That's what I'm going to be working to help achieve with this program. So I want this program to be known for excellence. So if a Business Central partner, an ISV, a customer is looking for help, looking for a candidate, looking for a new hire, I want them to understand that the candidates will be excellent. So that is the ultimate goal. So this is a rather ambitious project. This is a multi-year project. This is not going to be accomplished in 3, 6, or even 12 months. So I'm going to be investing a lot of time, a lot of money trying to help build this and support others who want to participate in this program. So what's next? I anticipate there's going to be a lot of work around strategy and planning. This is new, not something I've done before. It's probably not something that's been done before overall, not something I'm familiar with. So this is kind of a new invention. So I need to figure out how is this going to work. There's no guidebook for this. I want to develop training curriculums, both functional and technical, and that is a huge, huge project. If you're familiar with any of the old NAV training material or Business Central training material, I'm assuming it was done by some type of organization that's what they do professionally. And hundreds, if not thousands of pages of training material. They had labs, they had exercises, and this is extremely difficult to do with SaaS software because it's changing every single month. So I'm not sure how it's going to work, but that's the goal, is to develop this curriculum. And in order to support that training material and curriculum, we need some type of platform. I do not want to do this in Microsoft Word documents. I would be a massive bottleneck. This has to be an open, community-driven effort. I'm not going to own any of the materials. I'm not going to sell any of this. So if we say post it on GitHub like MS Learn or MS Docs, that makes it open. It makes it open to the community for both using and contributing. So maybe it's a GitHub contribution where someone corrects a statement, adds a section, something like that. And I'm looking for help from partners and ISVs. I'm reaching out to Latin American consultants, partners, developers, ISVs, you name it, and also US-based ISVs, looking for help, looking for participation on the demand side. Maybe they can sponsor a training facility if we need to rent something. Not sure yet. Looking for help from volunteers. I've already had someone reach out to me from Mexico, a fantastic person who just jumped right in and said, how can I help? And we're working on the Business Central AL for Beginners workbook that Christoph has provided to the community. And we're looking to kind of use that as part of the the technical training for developers in Business Central, and potentially see if there's an opportunity to translate that for Spanish. And would that work better for certain countries, or do most countries want English? So we're testing that process. Training facilities for classes. If we start with some small in-person training classes to test the material and understand how the curriculum should work, we're looking for some facilities initially in El Salvador, and we're trying to understand what would work for that. Obviously, in-person training can be expensive. It can be difficult logistically for people to attend. So obviously, the much more efficient and cost-effective method is either, say, virtual training over a Zoom or Teams class, or even self-paced training with YouTube videos. So those are obviously in scope for this type of project, but those would need to come after we invest in the training, figure out what works, and have a more mature curriculum. Finding candidates. If we have in-person training in El Salvador, we need to reach out and find who would be willing to participate, who's interested, what types of existing roles or employees would want to attend this to advance their career opportunities in this space. We don't know yet, so we're looking into that. And obviously, Dynamics User Group, we're looking to find meetup leaders who are willing to lead different meetup groups and local user groups in different countries or cities. So, for instance, Mexico, it's a very large country. Obviously, Mexico City might be a great place to host meetups, but if someone is in Monterrey, Mexico, or Cancun, it may be difficult for them to attend those in person. So we could have virtual meetups, but if it's in different cities, we may need different leaders. So is there a big enough community in certain countries? If so, do we have leaders to help make that happen? So the Dynamics User Group is very interested in building the Latin America local user group and community space. So happy to facilitate that. So that is my new project. This is a multi-year investment. It is huge. It is very ambitious. I'm moderately scared. I'm very nervous, but I'm also very excited. I think there's huge opportunity. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to help not just Latin America, but other regions and continents with this material to try and build ERP center of excellence, perhaps throughout the world, and develop a formal training and certification process. But we'll see how it works. Hopefully it doesn't fail, but I'm going to try to make it a success and have a community that wants to support it. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for listening and being interested. And if you are interested in participating, in helping, if you know of partners in Latin America or ISVs in Latin America who are interested in this type of program, if this appeals to you or if it resonates to you for whatever reason, I'm open to feedback. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to help and volunteers. Although I don't yet know how you might be able to help, I'll work on it. You can email me at excellence@bcerptraining.com. And so just email that email address, excellence@, And if you could put in the subject line excellence colon and whatever you want to talk about, that will just help me identify those emails, because I get hundreds of emails, and this will just help me classify those so I can pay attention to those emails a little easier. So with that, welcome to this project if you're interested, and hope it's of interest to you. So thanks for watching.